You're listening to Bottomshelf Bitcoin. This is episode 21.
Relax. Enjoy your coffee. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Take a chill pill. What is it? Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bottomshelf Bitcoin, the podcast that puts Bitcoin knowledge within everyone's reach. As always, I'm your host, Josh Humphrey, and today with me is Andrea Respitsu. He's got a project, BTC Hot Spot, so we're going to talk to him about that. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me there.
So tell me how you got into Bitcoin and, maybe what's your background before that?
So I'm a computer science graduate, software engineer or programmer or developer, choose your one. I've been working with, my first job was actually a fintech in Italy and UK. Then I moved to energy sector in Holland, but still was developing. And this until I actually got into Bitcoin, which kind of changed everything because I left my job to focus on Bitcoin. And this focus was it could never be fulfilled because you just keep learning about Bitcoin. There is no endpoint, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's funny because I was just talking to somebody else a couple of days ago. I was doing another interview, and we were talking about how it's a rabbit hole, and almost everyone I know that I've met describes it that way. They went down the rabbit hole, and it's like nobody has reached the end of it yet, and we're all just still kind of exploring this cave system.
Yeah. Well, I think we are all learning and evolving with Bitcoins because the fork thing, it wasn't even a thing before 2017. So it wasn't even clear what the governance model looked like before the whole scaling debate. So yeah, we're all still learning. That's definitely a fact. Regarding how did I got into Bitcoin? So if I recall correctly, it was some early 2012. It was actually very early, but I didn't get into Bitcoin, through cryptography mailing lists or cypherpunks mailing lists. It was actually a friend of mine who told me about this possibility of making money through this new thing. But actually we ditched it to buy a PlayStation 4. It was very ridiculous. Actually, in hindsight, it was a very, very bad decision. But it's not actually the point because after we got into Bitcoin, we never bought Bitcoin. We started learning and reading about it. And if I remember in 2012, there was not even empty gox. So it was not so easy to get Bitcoins, but it was easy to read the source code, read how it works, and so on.
Yeah, you got in early then.
Yeah, I got very early, but the thing is, the first day I heard about it, I deemed it as a utopic thing that was completely unfeasible. I didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
But some months later, I remember there was a more reliable source that was still speaking about Bitcoin. Maybe it was HackerNoon or Forbes. And then I had all right, maybe this thing is real. Maybe it's worth looking into it. And yeah, perhaps it was a mistake because as you start looking into it, you got into the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And you never leave it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So now what do you do? You said you left your traditional job and you're doing Bitcoin now. Like what are you doing for your real, I say real in quotes, because I feel like everyone in Bitcoin has multiple jobs or projects that they're working on.
Yeah, that's actually something more or less of a problem for me because I am currently unemployed and I think it's kind of hard to find a job in the industry which is not related to buzzwords. There are many companies offering ICOs, blockchain eyes, coffee machines or whatever. And just 1% of those are legit Bitcoin businesses. And yeah, I feel like I don't want to work in the ICOs. I had multiple proposals, but there I am.
Yeah. Well, it's hard too when you go, that's part of the open source, the paradox of the open source community, right? Like you'll spend hours and hours on a project that makes no money. Just because you love it and you think this is a great
just because you love it.
Then it's like at some point everybody's got to eat.
That's a totally valid point. And actually, it just happened. So, for example, sometimes I write code for open source projects, for example, for Eclair or, other things. And I was looking into BIP 174, which is a new PSBT format for partially signed transaction format. And as I started writing the implementation, there was a new email saying, "Hey, what about changing it completely?" But
oh no.
It's all right. It was very fun to code it, and that's the whole point. I wasn't looking for a reward or a prize. I was just looking into coding it. Same for BTC Hotspot. I never expected anything in return. Actually, I never expected to even publish it. It was just a toy project.
All right. Well, since you brought it up, let's go in and kind of talk about your BTC Hotspot.
Mm-hmm. So BTC Hotspot. Maybe you already know it's a hotspot. So a hotspot system is a device that creates a network, the typical Wi-Fi that you see in your phone or in your laptop, and this network usually asks you to authenticate via some credentials or to pay. The peculiarity of BTC Hotspot is that you can pay with Bitcoins, and with the latest version, you can pay with Lightning. And the cool thing is that the owner of the hotspot he actually earns all the money. So this thing is not under a central authority, is not under a company. You can just download, install it in your Raspberry Pi, and you can set it up in your home and start earning money, theoretically.
Okay, so you said it runs off a Raspberry?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
The Raspberry Pi Model 3 or 3B Plus, something. Yeah, the Model 3, which is actually a bit controversial because it's not a great device for using it to be used as a Wi-Fi hotspot. It has some culprits into bandwidth and how to, for example, even the Ethernet adapter is not that powerful. So many people suggested me to use DDWRT, which is a firmware that you install into router devices, and it runs on an open source Linux distribution. So technically, I could port BTC Hotspot to that, and that would work on a lot of different devices, and that would be much better.
Okay, yeah, I've used DDWRT. It was a while back, but yeah, it's a pretty flexible framework.
Yeah, it's pretty flexible. Although last time I looked into the source code or the homepage of the project, it was kind of hard to find issues and how to contribute, how to approach a project because they were not on GitHub, for example.
Right.
So yeah, I felt like the DDWRT project was a little bit abandoned. So I actually thought maybe it's better off to start from scratch, write something completely custom, and if it works, cool.
Okay, so are you running it off of traditional Raspbian, or is it off Ubuntu, or? No,
the official Raspbian image from Debian or Raspberry.
Okay.
It's actually pretty standard.
Okay.
The only thing that I do in the install script is installing the dependencies for running the application, dependencies for running the Eclair Lightning node, and then the application itself and Eclair, and that's about it. But anyway, I was talking about some details about BTC Hotspot and the fact that you have to download the dependencies, and among those you have the actual Wi-Fi host access point daemon plus DNS stuff. It's a full-fledged hotspot.
Cool. So, if you're going to set this up in your home, you're then going to connect this hotspot via Ethernet to your own router or modem or whatever, and then that basically is sharing that connection over the Raspberry Pi's Wi-Fi.
Exactly. So the Raspberry Pi creates another network that your guest should use. Well, your guest should connect to the network, pay, and then he can use your main network, the network from your modem.
Now, does this allow them to get in? Let's say I've got my own personal, I'm running my website or some critical information from my home, is there a partition so that that person cannot get into my home stuff?
Well, currently there is no protection, although I think it's pretty difficult for the guy using the hotspot to get into your home subnet, because it's a different subnet. So they just don't see your computer on the same network. All the clients connected to the hotspot are on a different network. But an idea that I had, it was to offer a VPN service within the hotspot, such that the client may pay a little premium, and then they connect to a VPN, so that both you and them are kind of safe, because the packet just jumps through your modem and goes to the VPN server.
Very nice.
Although, if I can add something,
Sure.
Some people told me that it might be illegal in some countries, because because technically you're selling your connection and you have a contract with your ISP, your service provider, and depending on the contract, you might be violating it. It might just be illegal.
Yeah, I guess that's possible. My question then would be, how would they know, or how would they enforce it?
That's a good question. They can't know. They can't enforce this. They can't enforce it, because any client connected to the hotspot, for them, just looks like regular client in your modem in your house. It just looks like another device. They don't know, so technically they would go home by home and check for those Wi-Fi connection that ask for a lightning payment, and then they know that you are actually running that hotspot. But yeah, it's infeasible. It's impossible. I mean, if you privately do it in your house, I don't think anybody is ever going to notice it.
And now, are you connecting this to a separate Lightning node that you're running somewhere else?
Yeah, at the moment, it works in testnet, and it connects by default to my testnet Lightning node. That's for easy of setup. Although when I run the one in mainnet, I actually used to run the Lightning node in the PI. This is totally possible, mostly because using Eclair, I was able to use the public Electrum X servers, so I didn't have to run a full node into the Raspberry Pi, which is also possible, but it's a lot harder.
Yeah, it is. I've tried it, and it's doable, but it is, because the Pi is slow, it takes such a long time to think.
Plus, you have to connect a USB drive, and the rate the PI is able to write in the USB drive is usually not so good. The PI doesn't have the USB 3. So yeah, there are some problems. It is not great. But of course, if you can make it work, awesome.
Yeah. Have you considered any of the other computers on a single, what do they call it?
I think single board computers.
Yeah, that's the word I was
or
thinking.
system on a chip.
Yeah. That's
SoC. Yeah.
So,
well, yes, of course.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's plenty of those devices. It's really, they're booming lately. They're really, the last trend. And it's plenty of those system on a chip. Although, if you're looking to make a Wi-Fi access point, actually you're better off with DDWRT and something from, D-Link, TP-Link, the typical manufacturer for routers and Wi-Fi access points. Because those things like API, they're not designed for high throughput of data.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So, for example, just to give you an example of why the Raspberry is not suited for this, the Ethernet adapter is directly wired on the same chip of the USB. So if you have both a USB and the Ethernet cable, there will be a bottleneck. Basically, they were trying to write on the same bus.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Well, there are some versions. I think the Banana PI has a SATA adapter, which is not wired to the USB ports and the Ethernet ports. So it actually it has a better throughput. But yeah, depending on your needs, you have to really figure out what's the best system on a chip. And it's plenty of those. They're really great.
So now I'm just speculating in my head here. Then could you use, let's say like an OTG cable, if you've got your cell phone and you're getting internet over your phone? That's
a good question.
You're getting internet over your phone, and then
I see where you're getting. Can you run Can you run BTC Hotspot in your phone? Is that a question?
Yeah, so like if I've got, instead of wiring it to my router in my home, could I pull down internet from over my mobile device and then share that over USB to the Wi-Fi hotspot?
Ah, well, technically you can, if you manage to output the network via the OTG cable to some Ethernet adapter and push it to the API, then you could. Although another question that I had in the past was, can I run the same BTC Hotspot as an app in my Android phone? That's actually something cool, because you get the 3G or 4G data, and you can use the Wi-Fi adapter from your phone to sell that data connection to your friends or to your neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
It's technically possible, but there is one big if. So to do that, you have to give the app some special permission, which requires your phone to be rooted. And that's a problem, because people don't want to root the phone because they lose the warranty. It might attract other problems. You might be vulnerable. And without that permission, I couldn't make BTC Hotspot work as an app.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so you would want to have like as a backup phone and not your primary mobile.
Yeah, maybe yes. Maybe one day there will be one of those alternative Androids like AOSP or Cyanogen that have a custom kernel that will support this kind of thing. So instead of just sharing for free your connection, you can have a little income. Why not?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think finding ways for people to make a little money for the trouble of setting all this stuff up is a good thing.
Definitely. Actually, I think many people like the idea of selling their connection. It's pretty neat. Plus, I'm not sure how it is in the US, but in Europe, many internet service providers, they will create by default, for example, Vodafone in Europe or Vodafone in Italy. When you buy a modem from them and you sell it in your home, they will create by default some Vodafone network that is accessible for other Vodafone users. And then, some people kind of don't like the fact that somebody else is using their connection without them noticing. And then they ask, why can't I get paid? And then we have BTC Hotspot.
Oh, so they're basically selling or not selling, but providing to anybody else that's one of their customers. Exactly.
If you are a Vodafone customer, you can use your Vodafone login across all the cities or countries, and whenever you see a Vodafone hotspot or a Vodafone router, you can use it. And it takes a little degree of technicality to disable this feature from your house, from your modem, sorry. So not many people do it, actually.
I gotcha. But like you said, it's nice if you are choosing to provide that. It's not nice if they choose it for you.
Exactly. That was actually one of the main reasons of why I started BTC Hotspot. I mean, it was actually, BTC Hotspot was one of those ideas come out of brainstorming with friends. I think all of us Bitcoiners have spent countless of hours brainstorming with friends on what would be the next life-changing idea. And among many, BTC Hotspot was one that I like to pick it up. And actually people reacted pretty well. So
now let me ask you this, because where I live, I get very good signal over a 4G or LTE or whatever you want to call it, internet on my mobile device in most places. So where you're at, is this something where you are regularly looking for a network to connect to?
No. Actually, it's pretty common to have mobile data also here. So, and that was kind of a problem for BTC Hotspot. Not many people are looking for Wi-Fi networks on the run. I mean, I have plenty of data in my phone. I'm definitely not looking to pay any other network. But if you could get a lot of people running BTC Hotspot, you might, there might be some sort of network effect of people competing with each other to lower the prices. So, if you go to a random bar or a cafe and you see 10 BTC Hotspot connection, you definitely choose the cheapest one. And then you might jump from hotspot to hotspot and going cheaper and cheaper. I mean, that's just a futuristic thing, but that was the idea.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. So here's my, I guess concern's too strong a word, where I'm confused. If somebody doesn't have Lightning set up, then that's kind of a difficulty for them to get on, right?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think the biggest difficulty is not even to open a channel, is to open a channel for incoming payments. Because at the moment you need to do some trickery to do that. If I open a channel to your node, basically I can send payments, but I can't receive payments before I have sent anything. Because the balance is all on my side. And that happens for all the hotspot. If you start your hotspot with your Lightning node, and you do that setup so that the Lightning node connects to another node and opens the channel, you can't receive payments still. You have to first make an outbound payment so that you then have inbound balance on the channel. It's a bit tricky.
Yeah. But, this is where you brainstorm and you figure these things out and what's the next version or whatever. But
indeed. And actually, if I can add something, because BTC Hotspot was started in 2016, so it's actually 1 year and a half. And the very first version wasn't using Lightning. The very first version was using BIP70, which is some sort of a quick protocol to let the client sign the transaction. And instead of broadcasting to the network, it gives it to you and you broadcast on their behalf. That was very good because the client could sign and make a payment completely offline. While in Lightning, you can't. You need to be online to reach your node. And even if you have your node in your client, your node must be online to talk with other nodes. So how can you pay for something to get online, but you need to be online before you pay? It's a bit tricky. It's actually very tricky.
So how would you solve that? I'm curious now.
Yeah, well, there was some brainstorming too. The quickest solution was to allow some, 1-2 minutes of internet traffic from the client such that he could make the payment and stop. Because once you make the first payments, then you're allowed to use internet, and then you can make more payments. And actually, since Lightning payments are very cheap in fee, you can make a lot of payments. Actually, you can pay per megabyte. You could pay every minute.
Oh, very
and every
nice.
time you're running out of credit, the hotspot page could tell you, pay another minute if you want to stay online. And actually, there were a lot of variation. There were a lot of ideas of even, throttling the traffic and adjusting it on the needs of the client. So, for example, there are people who just use WhatsApp or, the chat application. They don't use a lot of data, so they might prefer a plan which is like slower and less data, but cheaper, rather than having something high bandwidth and very fast, which might be better suited for high quality videos, video conferences, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's nice to be able to pay based on what you're getting. Yeah, I always like that model of look, if I don't need the nicest, fanciest thing, I don't want to pay the higher prices.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's the idea behind it. But more generally, I don't know, if you are, again, in a cafe and you're abroad, so you don't have internet. Let's say you just want to send a message to your partner at home. So you just need Skype or WhatsApp. And you might even pay only for that specific app, because we could filter on our side the packets that you're sending and let them pass only those going through WhatsApp servers or Skype servers. That's also an option.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of work to do in BTC Hotspot. And the thing that is a little blocking me at the moment, I mean, because I would like to implement those cool ideas, although there is a lot of UI and UX work to be done. So, I'm really terrible at designing user interface. I can't even draw the stickman. So the thing that you see now in BTC Hotspot is completely drawn by a friend of mine who who is like a script kiddie, and and that's what we've got. So there are pages, they work, they're very ugly, but whatever, they work.
So what you're saying is there's an opportunity if somebody out there is listening and they're good with UX, UI, they could go to the GitHub and get involved and help you out.
Oh, most definitely. That would be like that would be great. That would be something that would motivate me to keep working on it. Because at the moment, I mean, think about the functionality I explained before, where you have to set up your BTC Hotspot house at your home, and then you have to open a channel. To do this, it might just be one click, or, you know, the typical step-by-step process where you click next, and you set up your thing. But this has to be automated. It has to be coded. This has to be created. And while technically possible, there must be some work on the UX. And yeah, I mean, I could do it by myself, but it's really ugly.
Well, and it's always more encouraging to work on a project with another person than to sit there by yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. Plus, I had a hard time trying to convince my fellow developers to get on Bitcoin and Lightning and helping me with BTC Hotspot. Many people are still very skeptical. I mean, I understand it. I understand it completely. Actually, those no-corner friends are work with me, you know, with the feet on the ground when thinking about BTC. They're actually a good part. So I think we still haven't seen the big adoption by developers at the moment. So I think hopefully in the future, something like BTC Hotspot wouldn't be seen as, you know, a completely crazy project, because that was what they called it in the past.
Yeah, I have several friends that are big into various technology or you know, engineers and things, and I still can't convince them to get into Bitcoin.
Well, that's something we should really, I mean, we should think about it. If you can't convince a developer that Bitcoin is good, even after reading the source code and introducing him to every technicality possible, then, I mean, it's kind of a dead end. It's hard to get it, you know, to make it take off. What do you think about it?
No, I agree. I think then we just have to keep working on, you know, other projects and development of either Bitcoin itself or related things that use Bitcoin until we get something that they go, this makes sense now, or I see an actual use for it.
Exactly. I think that eventually there will be something like a use case that is so big and so powerful that they just can't ignore it anymore. And at that point, everybody will wake up looking at BTC and saying, hey, I knew this for a long time, but I ignored it for so long, but actually it has a use case. It all makes sense. It's not just a crazy coins or, you know, the cereal box coin that they're all a joke. It's actually something serious. Because that was the most common critic by fellow developers who were actually skeptical about Bitcoin, because they were skeptic about the economy concept behind it. I mean, just creating tokens out of thin air, you know, not many people are very fond of the concept.
Right. But, you know, and that's always the part where I laugh when someone says, you're just making this up. And I'm going, what do you think the money you use now is? But it's hard to convince people different from the system that everybody else uses.
Yeah, I mean, they also have a point. The money that you're using now, dollars or euros, they're backed by government. They're backed by something you can see, you can touch, you know, something real. And moving to something completely digital that is completely decentralized and based on proof of work, it's another paradigm. It's such a huge shift that it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. But that's it.
Yeah, it is. It is a next step in. It's one thing to say, I know that this paper doesn't have any intrinsic value, but it's backed by the government. It's another step to take it into the completely abstract and say, we all agree that this code is worth this much.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a huge shift. It's a very big shift in the way you think about the money. It's actually, I very like the comparison with the internet, because before the internet, it was impossible to think about having this conversation, having this interview we're having now. It was impossible to think about so many use cases. They made no sense back in the days. And that's how we feel right now. Many use cases we're thinking about for Bitcoin, they're kind of borderline, but we'll see happen, over time.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had told me when my dad first connected our computer as a kid to the internet and showed me how you run an internet search, if you had said, when you're an adult, you're going to be running a radio show over the internet where you talk to people all over the world, I would have said you're absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably we are old enough to remember the internet when it was, booming or growing up. I remember somebody asked me, can you get me a list of all the websites existing? It was, that's impossible. How can you do that? Because there was so many misunderstandings about the internet, because it was the first decentralized thing. And anybody can run a computer. Anybody can talk to any server. It was a very new concept. Same for Bitcoin. Just the same.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of what I like about your project too, is that, if I lived in an apartment complex or a building with, multiple people around me or in close enough proximity for the Wi-Fi, I don't have to talk to those people. We don't have to have any kind of interaction really for them to be able to pay me and use the service.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine, I don't know, this very crowded, building, for example, in a poor country where they share one internet connection with a lot of families and a lot of people. It could just be something central, and then everybody pays to the hotspot, and that's about it. Or I don't know if it ever happened to you, but I remember some neighborhoods. Once I found a neighbor in front of my door, and he was trying to use my Wi-Fi because I heard some noise from his laptop, and then I opened the door. Hey, dude, what are you doing? Trying to crack with Wi-Fi? Well, just pay.
Yeah, exactly.
But many people are shy, so you're not going to knock to your neighbor door. It's better if you can just pay via the service itself. The service can get your payment, can get the payment to you. That's a good part.
Yeah, we used to do that in the dorms at university.
Yeah, that one very good example. It happened to me also in the dorm in the university. But regarding BTC Hotspot, because before I started working on it, I tried to imagine all the possible use cases. And one use case for this, let's say for this technology, was not to use it only for the Wi-Fi, but also for, data network. I kind of envisioned a future where you don't have to sign up for, any contract with any company. You just go on and you pay, via data. Well, so if I go to the US, I connect to AT&T. I don't have to sign a contract. I just pay with my phone to AT&T. That would be great.
Yeah, so I think that's a great idea. I think probably AT&T, just from my experience, would not be the ones to implement something like that. But T-Mobile seems to be the kind of the innovators on a lot of that kind of stuff of just doing things differently. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. I go to another country and I've experienced this a couple of times, right? Where you're traveling internationally and then you don't have signal or your phone doesn't work there. Or if it does, you've got to jump through a bunch of hoops to get it to where it's a pain.
Yeah, it's a pain. Well, actually in Europe now it's less than a pain because you get the same data across all the countries. But when I went to Hong Kong, for example, I remember there were ladies outside the airport trying to get me to buy the SIM card and pay for the data. this is all good, but what if you can just pay from your phone without even the need of changing the SIM card? I mean, this is technically possible nowadays. And it's all thanks to this model of Bitcoin where you can have those microtransactions from computer to computer. This can apply to pretty much, well, not everything, but a lot of things. From this pay to stream, pay for data, pay for audio, pay for anything, and also pay for mobile data. But as we said, there might be legal implications.
Yeah, I guess there might be legal implications. The thing with the SIM card too is you don't know what else they've put on that SIM card. And so now that's a security vulnerability for your phone. And so if you can bypass adding hardware to your phone, then that's a plus.
Well, I mean, you're totally right. Inserting a new SIM card in your phone, it's a security hole. If I were, president of something, I wouldn't go to China and pick up the first SIM card and plug it in my phone. Not at all. But with existing SIM card, you're able to choose another network from your phone, and then the network itself can ask your phone to authenticate and to pay, just like you do in the hotspot cafes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking forward for that.
Yeah.
One day.
Okay. Go ahead.
Nothing to say. Actually, I wanted to show you. I'm not sure if you've seen. I made a bot just a few days ago.
No, I didn't.
Bitcoin error bot. There's actually this guy, John Carvalho, Bitcoin error log. Very similar name. So the bot just tweets for invalid block and errors caught live on the Bitcoin network. So when somebody tries to feed an invalid block to your node, and typically the invalid block is something with a wrong proof of work, so they haven't spent enough energy on finding a new block, and your node notice it. Or sometimes there are people trying to make an output from a transaction which is greater than the input, which is basically creating bitcoins out of thin air.
Sure.
And this bot will tweet also about that as soon as it catches it. Oh, let me send it to you.
Yeah.
So, this bad guy here. Well, actually, the idea wasn't mine. It was from Kalle Rosenbaum. And then I just decided to pick it up. I thought it was nice. It's just a very simple thing. With memes, of course.
Let's see. Oh, you sent it to me over Twitter. Okay.
Oh, yeah, over Twitter.
Let's see. Let me pull that up.
I will put it here too. Yeah, well, that's something very easy peasy. Still funny.
Oh, very nice. So
it will tweet and saying something like, a snarky comment like, "You're stinky bot."
Yeah, I like that.
Something like that.
So does it, let's see. So does it identify anybody or no, it doesn't. It just says this is every time it sees an error log, an error, it throws it out there on Twitter.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah, basically I'm getting all the errors from the Bitcoin log, and based on some matching. So for example, if you have incorrect proof of work, then I tweet the meme with this guy saying, this is bad, this is good. Or if there is an invalid transaction, which is trying to create money out of thin air, then there is this meme, you can create bitcoins out of thin air if I validate the transaction, and so on. I have to finish it. I have to. Oh yeah,
it's got the thinking man on there. That's funny.
Yeah.
I like this.
And also there's something like, "Yo dog, the block you send me is orphan. If the block you send to my node doesn't have a previous block, or actually the previous block you're trying to specify is wrong because basically your miner forked and tried to mine on an invalid chain."
Yeah. Wow. Oh, this is nice. I like this. I'm gonna have to. I'll put the link to it's at Bitcoin error, but I'll put a link in the show notes, bottomshelfbitcoin.com/21 for anybody listening that wants to go follow this guy. So that's
nice.
funny. I like that.
And actually, I found something interesting. So, for example, if you see the tweet from June 22, so there was an invalid block, and the same invalid block was sent to my node also today. So there is somebody that is trying to feed the same block, the same invalid block to the network over and over. I don't understand it.
No, just
why would you do that?
Yeah, just keep trying. Eventually, nope, doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way. We validate. Exactly.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, I don't know if you follow Jameson Lopp. He had a tweet recently that showed how many. Let's see if I can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, the whole thing was started from his tweet.
Oh, okay.
Because somebody made a comment and said, "Hey, somebody should make a bot and tweet about live errors." And yeah, there we go.
Okay, well there you go. This is why crypto Twitter's fun. I mean, it can be its own secondary rabbit hole, and it can be a dangerous waster of time, as I've discovered on my own. But yeah, I mean, you can it's also a great place to quickly share ideas, and that's kind of like the Satoshi's place, and then Michael Goldstein was saying, what if we took this idea and somebody made Pokemon out of it?
Poketoshi.
Yeah, and then somebody did like 2 days later. So this is how this stuff gets
it's awesome.
Transferred.
It helps a lot. It has a huge network effect. Whatever you write on Twitter, a lot of people are gonna read it.
Yeah,
and then you have visibility. So it's awesome. Although you can waste a lot of time arguing on Twitter, and the problem is with such small tweets. I mean, at worst, or let's say at best, you end up learning something from each other. At worst, you just screw up, and the thing never ends. You're just insulting each other.
Right. Well, and it's the asymmetrical amount of energy you have to spend to refute BS. So
yeah. They call it a DDoS attack because basically somebody is making a lot of false claims, and it's so easy to make a lot of false claims. Like, I think the earth is flat, and you have to debunk it. Then you have to go pick up data and say, no, the earth is not flat. But if people keep doing it, then you have to spend a lot of time trying to debunk their arguments. I just hope eventually the actual truth will emerge from from folks.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I think that I think some people, having a few people that just loudly say like, this is wrong, here's why, this is wrong, here's why, and go after the scammers. I think it's good to have a few of those people, but I think what's more beneficial is for everybody else to focus on making progress on code or projects or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Totally agree.
All right. Well, Andrea, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about, or any other projects that are in your future here?
Well, I'm not sure about it. Well, in my future, I really want to work on Lightning networks and payments in general. I think we're just seeing at the moment, even with the bear market, we're seeing a lot of speculation and a lot of those coins and buzzwords and projects backed by literally nothing. And when I believe this is kind of a bubble that eventually will pop. So there will be a massive realization that you can't create blockchains, like peanuts. It doesn't work that way. So eventually, I think there will be a huge shift into payments and how to use Bitcoin for real use cases, merchant adoption, remittances, microtransactions. There are plenty of areas to work on just for Bitcoins. And I'm going to focus on those. But first, I have to find a good company.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a lot of people who are frustrated or upset about this bear market. And I know this episode's going to come out a little bit after we're recording it. Probably, I think we're like a week out. Early on recording as to when it will release, so who can say what's going to happen in the next week. But I know a lot of things are kind of dropping right now as of recording date, and I think a lot of people who've invested, who quote unquote diversified into all these altcoins, I I think a lot of them are going to get shaken out, but I think there's going to be a few people who watch this all and realize, oh yeah, like all the rest of them follow in Bitcoin's wake, and Bitcoin's the only one that has real use case. Or at least, you know, there's very few that have any real use case. And so we'll see people who either get out entirely or they'll move into the real thing.
Well, I would say beside the use cases, the technical foundations. So I think many projects have very weak technical foundations. And we've seen hacks for, if I'm not wrong, it was Tron and then Bitcoin Private, because it's very easy to attack them actually.
Yeah. And Verge and...
So, yeah, Verge, exactly. And I think all those people who bought Verge put your coin here, they were in for a quick buck. And that's completely missing the point of Bitcoin. If you're in for a quick buck, then you deserve to get wrecked.
Yeah. I mean, you should not, you shouldn't invest in things if you don't understand them, you know?
Exactly. Because if you did understand them in the first place, you weren't investing in Verge.
Right.
Or, you know, put your coin here.
Yeah. You know, I think I was reading an article the other day that Verge had copied code from Peercoin, I think, which, you know, there's something to, there's a certain amount, you know, on open source projects of people expect you to take code and copy it over and reuse bits, and that's kind of the point. But at the same time, if you don't go back and read through the code and understand what your variables and what things mean, then you're introducing vulnerabilities in there. And so the hacker understood their code better than they did.
Exactly, that's what happened. They had a vulnerability. If I remember correctly, they used like 5 hashing algorithm or mining algorithm, and one of those, it was very weak, so the attacker was able to kind of bring down the difficulty. I mean, they haven't thought it through. That was obvious.
Yeah. And
in blockchains, that makes you realize that it's not easy at all. It's actually very hard to get the game theory and the incentives behind this token and all the mining thing. You need to have them right, otherwise you get attacked. They're attacked.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so how can people keep up with your work?
I don't know. Maybe just follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
Although I'm not kind of interesting account, I would say. I don't think I'm a thought leader. I mostly, you know, I like things from Jameson Lab and other OG crypto that post very interesting insights. And beside that, sometimes I troll some people because, you know, it's very tempting. It's very tempting that to see Bitcoin Cash people saying bullshit and then you have the troll.
Yeah. So what's your Twitter handle?
Autodisk. We did 0 instead of an O, the first O. Actually, I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with Autodisk. I figured out recently there is only Italian word. It's basically the guy who was driving the school bus in The Simpsons. In Italy, it's called Autodisk.
Oh, really?
And that was, yeah.
Yeah, Auto. Okay. I know who you're talking about.
Auto. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there, and then I'll put the link to the BTC Hotspot GitHub in the show notes.
Oh, nice.
And
very thank you. Actually, I hope an outcome of this interview is to get even more interest about BTC Hotspot, so that we can keep on working. I can start again. I would really like it.
Yeah. So especially if and so what's it written in?
The moment in Scala.
Okay. So if you're familiar with Scala, or what?
Well, I'm free to rewrite it from scratch. It could be any language, really. You just have to talk with a Lightning node, and then you have to. Well, there is a part which was completely custom. It was IP tables, an IP table scheme to route the packets and let them flow through the application before going to the internet. So that way you could authorize some packets or not. But that's fine. I mean, it's already done, so you have to rewrite the application if you want it. Not that much.
Gotcha. And like I said, if you're good with UI, UX, or something you want to get better at, then that's
Yes.
definitely an area that you're looking for.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, Andrea, thank you for coming on the show today, and it's been a lot of fun talking with you about this stuff, and hopefully we can inspire some people to join you and get this more developed.
Yes, thank you, Josh. Was fun also on my side. Great show. I'm going to listen to your previous podcast because I'm actually missed quite a lot of them. I have to be honest.
No worries.
No, they're fun. They're fun. Also, I think they're a high quality source of information. Besides reading Twitter or Reddit, which is mostly trolls, it's a lot more interesting to hear real people discussing about Bitcoins.
Yeah, I think so. Anyways, that's why I do it. So, but thanks. Yeah.
Good stuff. Keep it up.
All right. Thanks. You take care.
You too. All right. Bye, Josh.
Bye. Okay, everybody, that's going to do it for our interview today. Just a quick note, as I was editing this episode, I came across, funny enough, when Andrea and I had talked about problems with BTC Hotspot being one of the problems, or one of the challenges being having a Lightning channel with inbound payments. Alex Bosworth, who is working on submarine swaps with Lightning Network, he also has created a solution. I'll put a link in the show notes, but basically through yalls.org you can open a channel back to your attempt to open a channel back to yourself for inbound payments for testnet. So I'll include a link there, yalls.org/about, and there's just a little link down there to open a channel for incoming payments. So I thought that was cool and really timely. So since we talked about it in this episode. So anyways, usual stuff. If you like the show, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, whatever. Leave us a good review. And that really helps the show get seen by other people. As always, when these shows come out, if you'll retweet it or, like it, whatever, it always feels so weird in these kind of situations to do the self-promotion thing. It's not an ego thing of like, I feel like I need that, endorphin hit of getting the like on Twitter. It really does actually help the show get seen by more people. It's something that I didn't really understand until I had to use social media in a business sense. I always thought it was just kind of like this, narcissistic thing. But it really does help people who rely on these goofy algorithms to get seen by other people. So you are helping promote the show when you like and subscribe and retweet and repost and blah, blah, blah. So that really does help the show, and I appreciate when you guys do that. I'm on Instagram now. I know I said that last week. It's kind of a weird thing because there's a lot of scammy crypto stuff on Instagram. So I'm one of the few channels or feeds or whatever you want to call it, accounts out there that's actually putting out non-scammy stuff. So I've got some memes out there that you've probably been seeing them show up in my Twitter feed as well. But anyways, I do the memes and then kind of the links to the episodes. So if you're just looking for something, if you're already on Instagram and you're just looking for something funny, I post some stuff on there. And then Thursdays, I put the episodes up on YouTube if that's easier for you to share with people. Again, if you're like my wife and you like listening to the television instead of watching it, that's for you because it's not a video of me. It's just a waveform and the audio. So it's not pretty, but it's there and you can listen to it if you want to do that on YouTube. All right. So I am going to do my best to get another episode out next week. And then after that, the following weekend will be BitBlock Boom. I know I've been talking about that for a while now because I'm really excited because it's the first Bitcoin conference I've ever been to. And that'll be on Saturday, July 14th. So I think you can still get tickets to that if you are able to be in the Dallas area on July 14th. So anyways, hit me up if you're going to be in the area and we can grab lunch or dinner or something, or just, I'll shake your hand and say thanks for listening to the show because I do appreciate that. after that, I don't really know. I will probably be taking a couple weeks off from doing the show. I've got a couple other projects that I'm working on that are not Bitcoin related. I just kind of want to spend some time with my family while they are on summer break. And also, I am going to be starting grad school in August. So, yeah, I got a lot coming up outside of the show. And so I'm going to try and take some time off and do some other things. And then hopefully I will see you guys back in August. I probably will be moving the show. I haven't decided for sure yet. I will probably be moving the show to kind of an every other week schedule, but we'll just see. If I have the time, that's awesome. I love to do the show. And so if I'm able to do it and I have enough guests lined up, then I'll do it. But it's all just going to depend on what kind of time I have available. So thanks for listening to me ramble. Don't forget, if you want to support the show financially, you can go to bottomshelfbitcoin.com/donate. There's several ways there. If you want to be a regular supporter, patreon.com/bottomshelfbitcoin. And when I'm at BitBlock Boom, I will be, if there's anything worth updating, I will be sending updates out through my Patreon page. So if you're a patron there, you'll get my updates and I don't know, pictures or video updates, or I don't know what I'm going to do, but we'll see. I am going to be at the Nakamoto Institute dinner that night before, so that should be fun. I'm excited about that. And I guess that's it for this episode. Like I said, hopefully should have one more episode out next week. And then after that, it's going to be a couple weeks before I'm back. So thank you guys for listening and for your support. From Bottom Shelf Bitcoin, I'm Josh Humphrey. Thanks for listening.